On today's show, a crossover event between Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Thunder. He is Rylan Stiles. I'm Ryan Blackburn. We're very excited to bring you a preview for this series. It's going to be a lot of fun between the Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Thunder guys. Here we go.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Thunder simultaneously. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I'm Ryan Blackburn, host of Locked On Nuggets here. He is Rylan Stiles over at Locked On Thunder. We're very excited to do a preview show here during the middle of the day. Game 1 of Nuggets Thunder is later tonight. We are very curious to see how this game and how this series is going to go. Rylan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Obviously, it's a quick turnaround because we only had a day to preview this series, and so now we're crossing over just hours before Game 1. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a very fun series.
A day to preview this series. You guys had 9 days to pick and choose what you were
9 days
do.
of like quaffling, like, oh, what if it's the Clippers? And if it's the Clippers, this is what happens. If it's the Nuggets, this is what happens. It's 1 day of like fully knowing it.
Very clear that the rest advantage is going to go to the Thunder. What's going to be a big time storyline heading into this series. We will have to see how it plays out over the course of this entire thing, but I'm very curious to see what Rylan thinks of that rest advantage and how much it's going to play a factor. But before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Make sure to check them out. All right, on today's show, Rylan and I are going to ask each other questions. At the end of it, we're going to do a series prediction on how this thing is going to go. I'm very curious to hear Rylan's thoughts. We were talking prior to, and he has a very interesting prediction for this series that I think might be interesting to Nuggets fans. So it will be interesting to see what you guys think of that. But before we get into it, I've got some questions for Rylan about the Thunder. Biggest question is, how much better are the Thunder than the Clippers, the version of the Clippers that we saw over the course of the final couple weeks of the season, kind of final like 6 weeks of the season or so? Cleaning the Glass has the Thunder as the top net rating team in the NBA during that time. They have the Clippers as the second best net rating team during that time. Clippers obviously getting back Kawhi Leonard and playing better basketball. How much of a degree of better are the OKC Thunder?
I think that their world's better than the Clippers were. I think that they're just the actualized version of the Clippers. Like you mentioned, those Cleaning the Glass numbers. That was also, and Cleaning the Glass does a good job of taking out garbage time. That was also just whenever the Thunder's main guys were playing, they weren't as engaged as they typically were, save for the 2 Denver games, the 2 Laker games, because everything was kind of wrapped up for OKC at the All-Star break. And so with the Thunder, you look at how the Clippers tried to defend Denver. The Thunder will kind of mirror that, only be better at it because they have a plethora of defenders. Where with the Clippers, you're really like holding on to Chris Dunn as like, hey, this is the guy that's really gonna slow you down. And the Thunder, they have Lou Dort, they have Cason Wallace, they have Alex Caruso, they have Jalen Williams, who's had an elite defensive season, J-Dub, and then they have 2 good rim protectors on the back end of that defense instead of just one with Zoo. So the Thunder, I think, schematically might look a bit similar to the Clippers. They're just going to do it at a much higher level.
The way I described it on a different show today was that the Clippers have Chris Dunn and the Thunder have 4 Chris Dunns. They just have 4 different versions of those guys. Alex Caruso was tremendous in the last series. Cason Wallace, he's still young, but still has it's one of the better stories in the entire NBA, how great he has been as soon as he has been. And then you've got obviously Lou Dort and a plethora of other guys that I think are a higher level of baseline than James Harden, Norman Powell, players of that nature. So I do think the Thunder are going to present a much more challenging series defensively for the Nuggets and how they're going to have to attack that. How do you think the Thunder are going to start the series? Is it going to be 2 bigs? Are they going to go 1? How does that going to go?
Yeah, I think that tonight they're going to start double bigs, and I mean, Mark is a coach that is more than willing to adjust and change, and he has lineup experimentations that he likes to go with. So it's hard to predict, but I think that tonight it'll be double bigs. Now, I think that later on in the series, you could get to a point where you realize that Chet Holmgren is a fine matchup as the lone center. Not that anyone's a good matchup for Jokic, but in the sense of you can hold up with just Chet, because Jokic is going to get his no matter what you do. 2 bigs, no big, 1 big. He's going to be awesome. So he can hold up and be more comfortable on the offensive end, being just the center on the floor. So you might get to a point where later on in this series, you do want to go only Chet in the starting 5 and have Cason Wallace in that starting lineup. That way you have another perimeter defender. Because I would wonder about Jokic if we're gonna say that he's gonna be incredible, kind of no matter what you do, which I fully believe. Would you rather just have him be incredible against 1 big, and with that you have Cason Wallace in the starting 5, to where you have a more explosive defender in rotation and to play the passing lanes and to try to halt some of that playmaking as best you can? Because again, you can't take it away, but he gives you a better option as a guy who can jump passing lanes, who can fly out and try to take away the corner threes whenever Jokic creates them, which he will. So I think that tonight it'll start double bigs. I'm curious to see how long that they go with double bigs. Maybe it works, but I think that they'll be quick to adjust, and that's kind of the benefit to the Thunder, is they can adjust, and they do have different ways they can try to attack Denver.
There's a push and pull in every one of these situations where I do think that the Nuggets can probably defend the Thunder double big lineup reasonably well. Put Michael Porter on Chet Holmgren, you put Aaron Gordon on Jalen Williams, you put Jokic on Isaiah Hartenstein, and you get a playoff level of effort. They might be able to match up with that. It's where you slide Chet Holmgren to the 5, ask Jokic to be covering in space, and more than that, just ask everybody else to be covering in space behind that on a consistent basis. That's going to be really tough. So I would call that a pressure point for the series, to see whether the Thunder, because their strength is in their guards and wings, of course, but having 2 different bigs that can match up and kind of bracket Jokic at the same time is a big deal. If they go smaller, Aaron Gordon was doing a great job throughout the entire first round of punishing smaller matchups on a consistent basis. Jalen Williams is not that small, I'll say that, but he's smaller than Kawhi Leonard, like in terms of overall level of strength, although J-Dub is, of course, a very strong player. How do you think, because I think we both think that Shai is going to be great in this series. Christian Brown did a great job against James Harden overall. This is a different level of beast. How do you think Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are going to respond offensively if they consistently double Shai on this series?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question mark. And I think that the point about Chet being the lone center, being more comfortable offensively, it's an interesting one, because he is more comfortable offensively, and in theory, he should be better offensively whenever he's only on the floor by himself, because of what it can do to Jokic. However, one of the big question marks about this Thunder team is their youth, their inexperience, the fact that we haven't seen them be able to convert clean shots from 3 and actually make them. They've generated good shots. Even in the first round against Memphis, they generated really good opportunities from 3. They didn't shoot the ball well, though. And at some point, the ball just has to go in. You can generate as much good threes as you want to. It doesn't really mean much unless the shot goes in. And so Denver could cross match and have Jokic just dare one of the young Thunder players to make shots. The interesting part about that would be, percentage-wise, like even Lou Dort is shooting 40% from 3. So percentage-wise, from what this season's body of work is, that it's kind of strange to say you cross-match and just let Jokic be at the rim and just let a guy that shot 40% in this season to shoot from 3. But it might be your best option if you're Denver to do that, and then just rely on, hey, the Thunder haven't hit big shots in big moments. Until they do, let's kind of force feed them to try to prove that they can do that. Offensively, though, it's going to be a lot on Chet and J-Dub, and this is where the Thunder have question marks, only because J-Dub and Chet have to be your number 2 and number 3 scoring option in some order this season. And it's their second ever playoff run. And through the history of the NBA, guys in their second ever playoff run have not been able to carry that kind of a load for a championship quality team. They're going to have to do it, though. They're going to have to be the anomaly. I would feel more strongly about J-Dub's chances than Chet's, only because you look at what he did over the final 8 games of this season, and then you look at what he did in the first round of this playoffs. He's a much more mature player than he was a year ago, getting to his spots in the mid-range, getting to the rim, and facilitating. He has a much better playmaking aspect to his game than he did a year ago. It's still going to be a lot of pressure on him, but I think that for the Thunder to win this series, he's going to have to be the guy to convert and to score at a high clip. And Denver, as you mentioned, has the size that can get him a little bit uncomfortable in this series.
Last question I kind of have for you here. The Russell Westbrook factor, he was fantastic in the first round against the Clippers. What kind of dynamic does he provide that especially going back to his former team in OKC, and I know that fan base really values and cares for what he brought and provided on a consistent basis. Obviously, the advantage for the Thunder is in their depth. It's in their bench. It's in having 6 or 7 guys that they can go to. Denver really has like 2 right now, but one of them is Russell Westbrook. Where are you at with him on this particular series?
Yeah, I think that Russ, I mean, he's going to be a big pressure point in this series. If he shoots 40% from 3 again this series, then things really swing for Denver in a positive direction, because the Thunder are going to have to let him shoot, and he could make them pay for doing that. But it's just the nature of how Denver plays offensively that it's the option you have to let up because you can't take everything away on one possession anyway. But that's your best option, just let him shoot from 3. If he hits 40% of them again, he's going to be awesome. Now, whenever you see Russ put the ball on the deck and try to get to the rim, that's where the Thunder have to give him a lot of attention, because you can force Russ into turnovers. You can force Russ into bad opportunities at the rim, where with their litany of perimeter point of attack defenders, if they can disrupt his drive out there and get him out of control toward the rim, and then at the rim he's met by Hartenstein, met by Holmgren, that could be a possession that goes by the wayside for Denver. And in the playoffs, you need to stack as many of those bad possessions as possible for your opponent. So I think that that's going to be the key in this series, is how in control is Russ when he's going to the rim, because the 3-point shot is just make or miss. I mean, the Thunder are going to let him do it. He knows that. Denver knows that. The whole world knows that. He's either going to make them or he's going to miss them. That's not really much control. What is in the Thunder's control is how they handle him when he puts the ball on the floor. And with as great as the Thunder have been at creating turnovers, he's got to be the guy that you force into bad decisions.
Completely agree. He has been pretty good in terms of limiting those bad decisions so far, but we'll be curious to see against the OKC Thunder whether that was able to stick up, because that's the name of the game with the OKC Thunder defense. So we will see what happens. But tell you what, folks, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to get Rylan asking questions about the Nuggets, and I'll do my best to answer well. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets. All right, this podcast, as you guys know, it is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't-miss moments. There's a whole bunch of massive plays that are happening every single night. And FanDuel, it makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, whatever you want to do. Tonight, the OKC Thunder are 10-point favorites against the Denver Nuggets. It's going to be interesting to see whether Denver can keep up with only one day off in this series. I'm curious to see how they handle it. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment count with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets. It's wild to go back and forth with 2 different podcasts and trying to keep the ads and the shows together. Back here, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Thunder crossover. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the show. Rylan, you have questions about the Nuggets, I am sure.
Yeah, Ryan, my first question would be about Shai and about the fact that we both would expect Jokic is going to be awesome. Shai is going to be awesome. This is the battle of the last 2 seasons, top 2 in MVP finishes. We'll see who wins it this year, but they're surely going to be 1 and 2 in the MVP race. With Denver, obviously there's not like a hey, here's the Shai matchup. they can do some things like they did against the Clippers to shrink the floor on SGA, especially if his three-point shot's not falling. He's gotten better from three this season, but you saw in the first round how he settled for some threes coming off of screens instead of getting all the way downhill, which Denver might invite him to do, and he can't fall in love with that. But I think that one of the better options for Denver might be a guy who's not playing right now in Peyton Watson. Is there any chance that they dust off Peyton Watson to try to hold up Shai?
Dust him off is an interesting phrasing because he has played. He's just been playing a smaller role. Denver has, it's been so important for them to have as much spacing, as much consistency as possible. They have gone with Russell Westbrook primarily off the bench because of what he has done spacing the floor. He's actually been a very positive option for them on the offensive end, and he makes fly around defensive plays. He had 5 steals in game 7. So it's one of the reasons they are consistently going with their starters and then Russell Westbrook and then Peyton Watson as kind of the pecking order. But I do agree with you that if Denver is going to guard Shai, their first option is going to be Christian Braun. He did a great job against James Harden, but like I said in the first segment, this is a different beast. I'm curious to see what he provides and whether he can match up with Shai at least a little bit. But in the first 4 games of this regular season matchup, I feel like you're right. We have seen Peyton Watson have a little bit more impact in that matchup than Christian Braun.
Yeah, I think that he would be the guy I'd call on if I was Denver to try to, because I mean, with Denver, you're going to be banking on shot variance anyway, and Peyton will be another guy who either his threes are going in or not. The Thunder will concede them, Denver will generate them, and then it's just like Russ. I mean, if they go in, they go in. If not, then it's not great. But at least you get the benefit of, I think, his defense against Shai. Because whenever I look up and down this Nuggets roster, as a Jayhawker, I love Christian Braun, but I do think that Peyton Watson is the better prototype for what's given Shai, issues. For as much as guys like Jokic and Shai get issues, would be a prototype and an archetype like Peyton Watson. Now, with that being said, what happens in the non-Jokic minutes is a big deal to me, because I just don't think you can play DeAndre Jordan even a single minute in this series against Oklahoma City. But by that same token, going small would probably, I think, be the best option for Denver, with having AG play the 5. But that's a lot of minutes to put on him, because you also need AG to play during your normal starting minutes. So what is there a better option than DJ? Why isn't Zeke playing? Is he up to par? Tell my audience what's going on with DJ being the guy behind Jokic.
Yeah, so DJ is a player that the Nuggets trust to do the right assignment on a consistent basis. He screens, he rolls, he rebounds, he will protect the rim, but he didn't have a great series against the Clippers overall. One of the things that you could argue in that series was when Zubac was going to the second unit and having those second unit minutes when Jokic was off the floor, you wanted a big body out there, because when the Nuggets tried Aaron Gordon against Zubac, he was too small. Zubac was great in that segment. So Denver needed DJ out there at times, but if the Thunder are going to go small, if they're going to play Chet at the 5 in the second unit, if they're going to play even Jalen Williams, I would consider Aaron Gordon to be the better matchup there. That's where you're going to get Peyton Watson on the floor, by the way, for what it's worth. It's the end of the first quarter, the end of the third quarter, when Aaron Gordon needs a break especially, and beginning of the second and fourth. They are going to get Peyton Watson on the floor that way. So you'll have a lot of lineups where Christian and Peyton are playing at the same time, and then Aaron is getting a break during that stretch. But the coaching staff just has not trusted Zeke Naji. That is a pretty clear indication. Him, Julian Strother, neither of those guys playing much. Vlatko Čančar got minutes over Zeke Naji, and Jalen Pickett got minutes over Zeke Naji and Julian Strother. So Denver's going to trust the guys that execute the game plan. But I do think that they should probably open up the bench a little bit and not play a 7.5-man rotation. That seems like a good idea against a team with the Thunder that are going to be running like gangbusters in this series.
For sure. And I think that that's going to be a test too, is the running being the pacing of this series. Because I think that despite the age and despite the lack of depth, Denver does a really good job of creating their own pace, and they do it in perhaps different ways than you would traditionally think. That they get, of course, the Jokic outlet passes off of rebounds, but like the last controversy between these two teams, his ability to inbound the ball really fast is a big deal. And the Thunder have the best transition defense in the NBA, but they also have a historically great defense in the half court. And I think that of those two options, like if the Thunder are good at defending, period, you'd still rather them get out in transition and even artificial transition with those hurry up inbounds from Jokic and try to get there before everyone gets set and penetrate the Thunder that way. And Denver's ability to do that will be key. And I think that that leads to the question about Jokic, where with Shai, like you've seen him whenever he does have a non-Shai night, it's been a little bit of, hey, you've conceded the three and the three's not falling. It's been mainly you've gotten into his body. You maybe playing like longer guys and guys around that one defender, because you can't cover Jokic or Shai individually. So you've got to be very strong in your gap, help and swipe at Shai while he's trying to get to the elbow, while he's trying to get to the rim. What is it about Jokic when he has because both these guys are the same vein, where it's like they had a good game if you're just talking about basketball, but it wasn't a Shai game or it wasn't a Jokic game.
Sure. Whenever
Whenever you sit here on the Locked On Nuggets podcast and say that wasn't a Jokic game, why? Like what happened?
a lot of it is intensity and decision making in terms of going through his matchup and creating shots for himself and other people that he normally makes. Like one of the indicators for Denver is obviously when they are attacking the rim, when they are getting shots right at the rim within 0 to 5 feet, they are working pretty well consistently. If they have to settle for a bunch of threes, if they have to settle for a bunch of mid-rangers, floaters, off-balance jumpers, things like that, if Jokic is trying to force feed passes into a crowd, that's where it usually was bothered. And then we saw again Zubac in the series this last couple of weeks, that even in one-on-one coverage against a big guy like that is one of the better isolation perimeter post defenders in the NBA, he can be bothered one-on-one as long as there's some shrink, there's some hands in passing lanes, things like that, and he doesn't really know what to do. There's just too much cat and mouse game going on there. So the Thunder, like you've talked about, kind of the better version of that from the Clippers standpoint. Though I will say Hartenstein individually, Chet as a defender individually in post defense, probably not as good as what Zubac does on a consistent basis. And if there's an argument, if you can force the doubles and the rotations a little bit more consistently, then maybe that makes the reads a little bit easier for Jokic, as opposed to Zubac is one-on-one. Jokic usually forces the double in those situations because of how good he is. He wasn't doing it as much in games 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, and then that's going to have to be Denver's advantage in this series, because the Thunder, like against anyone, but especially Jokic, they love to just swarm the post and then force you to play in a crowd. Jokic is a magician. I mean, he's one of the best passers in this sport, if not the best passer in the sport. He's the best player in the world. So it's like whenever you force him to kick the ball out, he's going to be kicking out the open guys, and the Thunder are going to have to rely on their athleticism to try to sprint out there and close out, but they're not going to get there in the closeout every single time. And then it comes down to a make or miss series. And I think that's going to be a lot of this series for both sides, is that shot variance from three. I think at the end of the series, whoever shoots the ball better from three is going to win the series. I think that's how it's going to go, because each side's going to concede threes to guys who either don't have the body of work as three-point shooters, or guys who do but haven't done it in big moments in the Thunder's case. So I think that's going to be key, is how the Thunder handle Jokic and how Jokic handles the Thunder, because you can't really play him straight up. Isaiah Hartenstein, Mark Daigneault broke this down perfectly. With Hartenstein, like, you can get into his body. You can't throw him to the fifth row in the stands, but also you can get into his body and kind of finish through contact, because Jokic is such a special player. With Holmgren, Jokic can obviously bump Holmgren off his spots, but Holmgren's so good at contesting still because of his length and recovery when he does get blown off his spots. But what happens whenever Jokic bumps him? He gets thrown off his spot. He tries to contest, and now he's hunched over contesting. That oftentimes leads to a foul. If Holmgren gets in foul trouble, then you're throwing Jalen in there. Like that opens up another dynamic for Denver. And so I think that this series, there's just so many different wrinkles and so many different ways that each team can create their advantage that it can truly go either way.
Can go either way is a very interesting point, and that we're going to wrap up on here. When we come back, we're going to give some series predictions. So we'll talk about game one a little bit and just where both Rylan and I fall on this particular matchup. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Thunder, crossover. All right, back at it. Locked on Nuggets, Locked on Thunder. Thank you for tuning into the show, guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. We love doing these. We love interacting. The squad shows have been great. We're about to go record a squad show after this. So very busy people here at Locked On and very excited to be busy at this point in the season. All right, Rylan, give me your final thoughts kind of on game one here, and then your series prediction for where you think this is going to go.
Yeah, game one, it has to be the Thunder's game. And if it's not the Thunder's game, then things get really dicey. You put the Thunder on upset alert, especially if they lose game one. And I say that because not only do they have the rest advantage by tenfold, because they've been off since last Saturday. Meanwhile, this Saturday, Denver is playing a game 7 for their lives, but they have home court advantage. And if not now, then like when? Like if now's not the time where your depth can expose a Nuggets team that's supposed to be running on fumes, and Matt Moore has been spouting off the stats and they're legit. Like this does not happen. A team that has to go to game 7 then has to be on the road for game 1. They do not find success in these settings. And the Thunder have done an excellent job of being able to win game 1s. They're 3-0 so far under Mark and with this core, and all 3 of those game 1s came after layoffs like this. So like the rest first rest thing isn't even an excuse, because they've had 2 different round 1s where they've had to wait for the play-in tournament to wrap up and had a quick turnaround. They've had now 2 different series where they've ended their first round quicker than the 4-5 has ended, because last year they swept Pelicans and got Dallas after a long Clippers series. Now they sweep Grizzlies, get a long layoff for themselves with Denver going to 7 against the Clippers. So game 1 has to be a Thunder game. And I don't think that game 1 should force any change in the predictions, any change in the reaction. Like if Denver gets beat by 10 or 1 or more, they should not feel any differently than they feel right now. They should feel as confident as they do right now. This is just what we'd call in the regular season a scheduled loss. But obviously, if Denver is able to dig deep and get this win, oh my goodness, things really open up for them in a big way, because you've stolen a home court advantage and now you've gotten confidence and you've kind of built that momentum from what was a fantastic, and I imagine cathartic game 7 after what happened a year ago to Denver. So game 1 has to be OKC, but past that in this series, I really do think it goes either way. I have Thunder in 7, but anytime Nuggets fans, before you comment, anytime a series goes 7, it's a 1-game sample size and either team can win it. It's just a matter of who wins it on that night. The reason I think that Denver's going to push OKC is because Jamal Murray is special. And I think whenever you're closing your eyes and picturing the roadmap of this series, there's going to be 2 games this series where the Thunder, for as great as they are, they're going to give up 30 plus to Jamal. They're going to have Jokic be incredible, and they're going to have those shot variants go against them, where Russ is hitting and Christian Brown's hitting and Michael Porter Jr. is hitting and everybody's hitting their shots. And like, that's just 2 games the Nuggets are going to win 10 times out of 10. And so then I think that the Nuggets will also beat the Thunder just straight up, and the Thunder will have a situation where, hey, this game was pretty even for 40 minutes. And what decided it, what tilted it, was the Thunder's inexperience and lack of being able to hit big shots in big moments swung it to Denver. And then the Thunder will actually win 4 out of 7, and the Nuggets will win 3 out of 7. That's kind of how I envision this series going. But again, if it gets to a game 7, I'd never doubt the best player in the world. That's why I think that Denver should be more confident than they are. They have the best player in the world, and that's kind of been good enough throughout the history of the NBA.
It's a fascinating perspective. And you know our show. You know Matt. Swipa's a lot more positive, of course, but Matt and I are Captain Negative. He's just Captain Realism, and I'm more Captain Negative. So I haven't been feeling good about this matchup for obvious reasons, because the Thunder are 72-14 on the season. They have 68 games in the regular season. They swept Grizzlies in the playoffs in the first round matchup, and have had plenty of time to adjust and put themselves into a positive situation. So I don't know, man. I feel like the fatigue factor and the overall level that Denver has had to reach over the course of these last couple of weeks, it has made them a better basketball team. I will agree to that. They're a better version of themselves than they were. And that's kind of what you're supposed to do in the playoffs when, you're challenged. You're put into a situation where you have to get better. It's fight or flight. And to Denver's credit, they've been a fighting team. They have been a team that on a consistent basis has been resilient, has fought, has done everything that they're supposed to do throughout their history. They've got a long history of bouncing back from adverse situations and being better for it. So there is a world where it happens. I just kind of think this is OKC's year. I do. I think that this is a year where they as a team are overwhelming for everybody else. Shai has leveled up in so many different ways. I think this is going to be a tougher matchup for Denver from like matching up with Shai in that perspective. He didn't shoot well in game one. Actually, the entire Thunder team didn't shoot well in round one, excuse me. But I think they'll shoot better in round two as they get more comfortable, as they get a little bit more confident in themselves. Although confidence has never really been much of an issue with this Thunder team, I will say that. So it'll be very interesting to see. I have Thunder in 6, but you kind of are talking me into the Nuggets being a little bit better of a matchup than I was initially thinking. There's a lot of stuff here that if it goes Denver's way early, like hypothetically they steal game 1 or game 2, then it starts to become a series. So going to be fascinating to see this. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Rylan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a reason why the Nuggets should feel better about this series after this podcast, and hopefully your Nuggets audience does, because I really believe it comes down to variance. I think that there's a lot of similarities between these teams outside of the depth and outside of the youth, which the youth plays a part in that shot variance of either Denver's crop of guys who you don't trust a ton just based upon their body of work over their career to hit threes. What if they do, though? Because they did it last round. I mean, Russ shot 40%. If he shoots 40% again, wow. The Thunder, on the other hand, have not. The first time they have a good three-point shooting series in a playoff series will be the first time that they do it, right? So, like, the Thunder have to prove that they can hit it. Now, you've never done it until you do it. So we could walk out of this series and say, wow, the Thunder can actually hit threes now in the playoffs, and it does change the dynamic a bit. But it is going to be a very interesting outcome, I think, because I really believe that Jamal, for as great as Lou Dort is, he's going to have big games. And Lou Dort will hold him in account enough to win 4 games because Lou Dort's an awesome defender. But I really don't think that Lou can take him away for a full 7-game series every single game. I think you make it like really tough on him, but I think that Jamal will be good. I know that Jokic is going to be awesome in this series. It just comes down to, with the Thunder swarming Jokic, who's he kicking it out to, and can they hit their shots? And if the answer is that they can't hit their shots, well, that changes the dynamic of many games in this series.
Another guy who I actually do have a lot of confidence in, Aaron Gordon. Like he proved a lot in that first round series. And this is a little bit of a different matchup, of course. He's going to be challenged in some different ways. There's no like ideal guy for him to guard in this situation. I just kind of think he's going to play well after what happened in the first round. I think he's just built like that. And there are a lot of guys on the Nuggets that are kind of built like that. Christian Brown seems to be that way. Russell Westbrook seems to be that way. So we're going to see. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very curious to see what happens. I know I'm getting flamed in the comments for picking against the Nuggets as the Nuggets host. Holy cow. I can't believe that I'm picking.
Wow, objectivity in this world is still a thing.
The 68 win team, OKC Thunder. Can't believe it. But hey, if I'm wrong, you guys get to criticize me as much as you want. Don't
spin zone. Ryan and Matt have buried this team 17 times this season. So why not one more? It's worked out to this point. I cannot wait for this series, Ryan. I really think that another interesting factor will be the series dates coming out yesterday, and it's every other day until game 6 to game 7. Yeah. And that leads the Thunder to have the rest advantage for the entire series until game 7.
Going to be interesting to see. Everybody make sure to check out NBA Game Night during the playoffs on the Locked On NBA channel. And for the rest of us, that's going to do it here at Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Thunder. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. He is Rylan Stiles over at Locked On Thunder. I'm Ryan Blackburn here at Locked On Nuggets. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We will talk to you guys very soon.